In today's news, nothing to hear, nothing to see. All is well with democracy, and the good guys are in charge. Our lead story of the evening involves an incident in South Boston, where...
Not attempt to adjust your equipment. We are in control. This is Sinister Mysteries. Tonight, we bring you another disturbing case from our files.
Enjoy the rest of the broadcast.
Hey there.
Welcome, foolish mortals, to the Sinister Mysteries episode number 62. He's Joey. I'm Craig. Welcome.
Take it away,
I
senor.
sound a little raspy, a little thing. I apologize. I'm battling a cold, so it's had a spring fever event last weekend. Apparently, I caught spring fever.
And you're doing the bulk of the talking tonight, so the time
I know this could be awesome.
Perfect.
So yeah, you're just gonna have
take
to
it away. No, you sound fine. You sound absolutely fine. So hopefully it'll hold up through the course of the hours. So
yeah, no.
Anyway, this is your baby. I learned some real interesting things, and this really hit me on a parallels and patterns level, which is probably where I'm going to come in toward the end, especially. This is not a standalone. This is U.S. foreign policy, which has always just made me crazy because it's so damn illogical and caused so much chaos. But anyway, take it away.
In a way, isn't it kind of apropos that it followed the VP picks?
Not offhand.
Just how connected some of the vice presidents are with the CIA and the CIA's connection to the world politics thing. Going back with George Bush Senior. Yeah. It's one of those. It was pretty cool that we ended up tying it up, especially after some of the things we've talked about. I mean, Operation Condor, all these ones. It shows this is a continuation of this, and that's. I mean, welcome everybody. Charles Radio is on here as Joseph. Welcome, sir. This is one. So I'll just pose that question. So. You didn't know anything about this, when I brought this subject up to you. What was the biggest shocker for you?
Just how repetitive it is, which I kind of expressed to you briefly in a private message in the middle of the week. I was just like, what again? Billions of dollars. I don't want to give it. I don't want to give anything away. I almost said because I don't want to give it away, but it's like a terrible 3-act play. Come up with with a shaky idea, throw tons of money at it, and it comes back and bites you in the ass. And I was like, I have a whole friggin' list of this. So that was the biggest one, the abject failure of this thing. That's what really shocked me.
Well, it was almost like the saying goes, if it's like, the case for insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. It's almost like the CIA didn't learn from what happened with bin Laden in Afghanistan, training him. Training him, going into this whole process, bam. What happens? We got Al-Qaeda, now we're fighting Al-Qaeda. 9/11 comes about. I mean, you would almost say that they didn't learn, or that was their end game all along, was to progress this through, is keep creating, through the mics thing, where we always have that adversary that we always have to fight. And it does the dirty work for us, and it also keeps giving us the adversary we have to fight. And it just has, when it's not a world power, it's easier to do what you want to, because, obviously we're not going to war with the with the nation of Russia or the nation of China. We're going to war with Al Qaeda. We're going against ISIS. We're going against, these entities and not an actual nation state.
We
So,
also
I mean,
see we also see the cementing of proxy war, which is
Mhm.
which is something that didn't necessarily always exist. Wars were fought. Now it's all proxy war. Ukraine is proxy war. What's interesting to me, Craig, and again, I don't want to give too much away as you unfold the narrative up front, but it's amazing how many of our guys and our allies get killed with our own weapons as they circulate through markets. And that's extremely current. People don't like to hear that. It makes them uncomfortable, but
well, just what you're saying is the key. We don't know what the result is going to be yet, but we saw in real time when Biden was elected, the withdrawal from Afghanistan. We left
also
how
on my
many?
list.
Yeah, we left all this material, all these weapons, functional. Everybody says no, they were destroyed. No. Just because you take a computer chip out of a thing doesn't mean, you left fully intact pieces of equipment. It's real easy to retrofit some of these things. So we left all this stuff, weapons, all this stuff, like this huge armament. We don't know yet where we're going to face this stuff down the road. We don't know if it was done intentional. We don't know if this just really was a screw up. This is like Vietnam all over again. We don't know the details, but we saw it in real time. I mean, we literally staged the pawns over here, and then we went on to continue playing the game, and everybody's kind of forgotten about, wait a minute, there's huge infrastructural stuff left behind in these locations. And so, we don't know. I mean, this could be something down the road we're suddenly facing. We're like, remember, it's just, this is, everybody keeps remember, it's not a game of checkers, it's chess. It's moving pieces.
And why I think tonight is so important is, I'm pretty in tune, pretty plugged in. I was not aware of this. Although I have been following the aftermath of the fall of Assad, because it's Afghanistan, Iraq all over again, the rise of, who the people, I'll just say this, Craig, to the audience, because it darn well. The people who are pretty much in charge of Syria right now were some key players during this Sycamore program. Their name is different, but wherever you want to start, my friend, I think that's a good prologue. Let's get into Act 1.
Yeah,
what the heck is this thing?
So Sycamore is the operational name given to a CIA operation that was launched somewhere between 2012 and 2013. So this is right after the second term of Obama. This is going to, one of the things we're going to hear about in this show too, is we're going to touch on a little bit of Benghazi. This is Benghazi was actually a little bit of a precursor, to this. This was the setup, because this is the what was it? The Arab Spring. That was this is a term. This is when Arab Spring came up, and a lot of people it's like, we touched on it before. Gaddafi had to be overthrown because he was getting ready to get out of the global monetary system. He was going to bring the country in its thing, and so you have to make him. He had become the bad guy. The Matrix had to get him out. I mean, Gaddafi had to be removed, and so he was taking up the same thing, because it didn't ever make sense why all of a sudden, like, the U.S. would be behind all these uprisings in the Middle East. Why we'd be fomenting all this turmoil? Well, it's as things have gone on, we've started to see, and then this is one of those things that was exposed in 2017, and this was this happened. So the history of this is the plan of it was to train rebels and to train and then get them armed, so that way they would unseat Assad, who was a staunch ally of Russia and Iran. Well, what's, like Joey said, it's proxy war. We've got, we got to keep that hitting those evil commies and those bad guys in Iran, and at any cost, but without using direct military conflict. But it's what's better than to bring in entities like the SDA, the SDF. Yeah, and those. So they came in, and what they did is this program ended up costing near like 1.2 billion dollars is what was brought in through the CIA. And as everybody knows, CIA doesn't have direct money that they can just throw at these things. This comes from stuff, and this is going to be one of the controversial ones of this. The Doge audits exposed through USAID what some of these NGOs were doing in the Middle East. And this actually shows where some of the CIA money is coming from. It's coming through direct taxpayer funds that are supposed to be going to humanitarian efforts, but are getting funneled directly to sources. I mean, like one that came out was, it went straight to Hamas. It went straight to, these things. And so now this kind of showed that this is where a lot of the funding comes, because that's one big thing. It's like, how does the CIA get this kind of cash that they can wage this thing? I mean, obviously this would have to go in the books if they're writing a check for $1 billion. Well, it's because it's not. It's coming through, as we learned in Air America and in the Operation Condor. The CIA has their hands in a little bit of thing called narcotics. And the funding of the narcotics trade, which through their partners in Southern America, in Central America, and Asia, they've got pretty much an unlimited cash cow, as long, that they get kickbacks from. So this is where that's coming in. So they basically, it's like participants and stuff. This one, they used a combination of allies throughout the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Jordan.
Who wrote a check for at least $1 billion.
Yeah. And that's it. So you're seeing that this was almost in a way kind of I guess an extreme proxy war, where this is almost like borderline cold World War, whereas the Middle East is actually out, which we kind of saw it heat up a little bit here recently with between Israel and Hamas with this fight, where it was starting to destabilize itself. In this one, you said it in a comment to me while we were talking about the Iran-Contra affair.
Oh,
this is just like
similar.
this. Yeah, black market sales of weapons and other things, and that's where Benghazi comes in. It is one of the things, is because the ambassador, the biggest things that were never explained to is why the ambassador was at that compound. That wasn't an actual, that was never like an established U.S. place that meet. If you're meeting somebody important, you'd meet him at an actual embassy. You'd meet him at someplace like here. So why would you go and meet with somebody, in an area that is not going to be friendly to you? It's not going to be that it's a dangerous thing. Well, we found out that there's most likely the ambassador was meeting with somebody in the military from Turkey, and one of the things that through Turkey was the funneling of these weapons into Syria. Well, that would be the precursor of setting up this timber Sycamore, is they had to get the materials starting to go in place. Well, in order to get them there, they've got to have a partner, and through the shipping and stuff, it's got to go funneling through here. Money goes here. You follow the money trail, and this is where this thing really gets into the chaos, is because then this breaks down, and so now the more of the traditional channels that they're trying to establish have to go dark, because Benghazi, you can't, everybody's got to do the plausible deniability. We're into the Tom Clancy thing now, where everybody's good. They're get out of jail free papers, and the infamous, what differences does it make at this point, from Hillary Clinton, and her thing. And you start to see, it's like everybody's distancing themselves, and now why they wouldn't send in logistical help to rescue these guys, is because it would expose why these people were there, what they were doing, and that goes on. So it just
that's a great point.
Yeah, no, it's
point that's high.
Yeah, and that was what was for me, was when it came down to this thing, was just as you go into this, I think my biggest question is at this time especially, why was it such a focus for the Obama administration to cause this chaos in the Middle East at this time? It's like, because it's always been the thing, I always use the reference, the magician's hand. The part I was struggling to really ever find the true reason behind it is, what was the goal? What was the end goal? Why did they want, specifically, why were they fomenting all this unrest, trying to stir this whole thing up? Because when he came into office, they had just, I think Bush had just gotten done with that Middle East peace deal. Things were actually pretty calm. And then all of a sudden it's like it was go time, get everybody stirred up and just get this thing. I mean, I don't know. Did you come across anything about that?
So the face of it, the less sinister of it is our foreign policy of anybody that aligns with Russia, Iran, China is an enemy. So the Assad campaign regime was kind of nasty business anyway. The country was in turmoil. There are resource assets and all of that kind of stuff there, but we can't, you talked about chess pieces. You can't be losing chess pieces to the other side. So imagine if chess, when you captured a piece, you could turn it to your side, right? It's part and parcel of the Cold War. My feeling towards the end, which situates it very squarely in a sinister mystery, is destabilization is a good thing. And I will say the Republicans have a certain agenda. The Democrats have a certain agenda. So as you brought to my attention years ago, Ukraine probably would have happened 2016, 2017, probably 2017 if Hillary Clinton had won.
Yes.
So, so some of these plans are delaying actions. Everybody has their priorities. What's weird is you mentioned 2017. It's not weird. It's a data point. It's worth looking at. In July of 2017, Trump reportedly ended the program. He's less concerned, although he's really going after China now in Trump too. He's less concerned. And, the big thing, Craig, is that he's a Russian agent. It wouldn't be surprising that it would be less concerning to him that Russia had big interests in and he was choking Iran in different ways, right? I think it was 20 something times more oil got bought from Iran under Biden in his first couple of years than Trump bought from Iran. And that money from the Biden administration went to weapons purchases. That's why Iran got hot and back on their feet. So It's interesting to me how the Republicans and the Dems have different agendas. So that's where it lays for me. That three parts. Well,
that's the thing. It's a lot of people talk. It's funny, like how people talk about it. It's like all you have to do is look at history. One thing Trump, all his problems, all the stuff that he's ever had, he's been consistent. He is not a warmonger in any way. He doesn't like combat. I mean, it's just even during the election time, what did he always talk? What was the comments he'd always say? I just want people to stop dying.
Yeah.
It's like he never said, it's like he was never like, yeah, this is good, this one's bad. He's just like, I want people to stop dying, make this end, people stop dying. And he's always been about, like, that's like the thing with China. He's not saber rattling. He's not parking aircraft carriers off the shores of China. He's basically doing the economic thing, saying, look, we're going to quit buying from you.
Yeah.
He's always been economic.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about him, and apparently not less so this time around, although they've gotten 8.5 years of taking a look at him, because he never really went away in those 4 years of Biden. They're afraid of him because he's a guy who will eat chocolate cake while they drop a mega bomb on a country and go, that was really cool. I wouldn't mind having an excuse to do that again. Like, I've read white papers where the intelligence community kind of says, this guy is so unpredictable. He is so hard for people to figure out, that these countries really are like, what will he do? Like, will he take over Greenland? Will he take over? I mean, it's if Donald Trump's power resides anywhere in watching this whole tariff thing and watching the markets and all, his unpredictability, right? His not always following the logical or diplomatic or economically sensible path really throws people off, and they have a hard time. Like, look at the Prime Minister of Britain kind of went, oh yeah, I kind of see the sense in this, which he said Monday.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of him. Whereas, yeah, the Dems had a different, you talk about vice presidents, Joe Biden and his ties to Eastern European energy and what bleed over that is in the Middle East. So I don't know.
Yeah,
That's
but at least I don't want to walk ourselves too sideways, but that, like, the whole thing you just said about Greenland, I think it's like classic, like the way he negotiates, because it's been that long time story about how he got Trump Tower built.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They didn't want to approve it because the way New York goes, it's not just land print, you also have airspace. And so for anybody that doesn't know the story, I'll do it just generalized. He basically walked up. They didn't want to sell him the airspace. So he said, here's the deal. You either do it, you either approve this building, give it to me. And, and he laid down two plans. He laid down Trump Tower. This is what I want. You guys either approve this, or I'm going to build this god awful, ugly tower right here. And he goes, doesn't matter to me. Either way, one's getting built. You decide. And I think that's what's going on with Greenland right now. Is it's basically he has what he's wanting to do, but this is that distraction thing where it's just like, say Greenland actually turned around and sold us. Denmark went, all right, hey, we'll sell Greenland. Is that going to be a terrible thing for us? No. I mean, there's so many things, but it's one of those things. I don't think at any point are we ever going to march troops on Greenland and suddenly invade and take. No, that's never going to happen. It's just,
but he will throw stuff out there, and he's also an agent of chaos in the sense that who thought that an artifact of his reelection was the right-leaning party pretty much had a lock on getting rid of Justin Trudeau in Canada. And then the thing was that he was replaced by another left. So I don't think he's I don't think he's a genius. He does, but he's such a chaos agent that things.
Oh yeah, it just keeps everybody. Keeps, like you said just earlier, it just keeps everybody to where it makes everything else unstable to where they can't formulate the plan. It's like it keeps everybody on their back feet and they're constantly pedaling, trying to get foothold.
Yeah.
So back to this. So back to something, like we said, it was launched in 2012, 2013. So the total cost for at least that's been reported through the CIA was $1 billion. That doesn't include other partners like Joey had mentioned through here.
Who Saudi Arabia wrote the big check, and then Jordan and Turkey were logistics and training. Qatar was involved, and also the United Arab Emirates. So this wasn't just like one country. This was, like you said, this was a block.
Yeah,
there's Middle Eastern countries.
Yeah, Saudi Arabia, UK, Jordan, Qatar, Turkey. These were the ones that we were known. And yeah, Charles, I was saying, it's like, you look at these things. You got the camps that want us to be isolationists, but then you also have the ones where status quo. But it's like, how much like U.S. taxpayer dollars are we spending to operate these major complexes in all these countries? It's like, it's nice to have launching points to make it easier for responses, but at the same time, we've got veterans sleeping on the street in the cold.
Yeah.
We don't have housing, mental health, programs for these to help these people, but we can spend hundreds of millions, billions of dollars to have these major air bases in the Middle East countries. It's like one of the things, like how this, if we're going to have a base somewhere like Saudi Arabia or something like this, how the Saudis pay for it, and we'll park our stuff there. But it's one of these things. In fact, I'm like I said, I'm not a strict isolationist, but I'm also, we got to think about, do we need to have thousands and thousands of troops stationed all around the world at a given time? It's like, bring it back.
Well, it's good for one segment of the machine.
Yeah.
It's very good for one segment of the machine, which goes back to one of our theses. But anyhow,
this whole thing is like, so it was a chess, like we talked about, like it was a chess move, because this one, I kind of came out to, like I said in the beginning, from the vice president thing. This started back. You can start seeing this thing, what we talked about last show, where like LBJ started dealing with a lot of stuff with Vietnam. but Bush gets involved. He's involved too, along with that goes into the Iran Contra affair with Reagan. He's getting involved in that. Cheney in the Iraq Afghanistan conflicts and stuff. So you're seeing that the vice president has shifted from just being a figurehead that just kind of stands there and nods and the yes man, to where they're actually becoming the point man, where they're actually doing more. Because there was even talk, like during that one, that Biden was heavily involved in this, in this process with this. Yeah. And that was because he was photographed in Zarqa, I think is how you pronounce that, in 2015. And so that was under him. So that was one of, showing that this wasn't just, that there was an official nature to this operation. It wasn't just, hey, rogue CIA doing what they want. But this was orders from the top.
No, and what's really interesting is there was a precursor to Timber Sycamore, which was publicly acknowledged, run by the DoD. So they were given $500 million to train 5,000 fighters. They managed to train for $500 million. It's almost like beyond comprehension, Craig. Before they shut the project down because it was so ineffective, they trained 60 fighters. And it cost $500 million. So that's when the CIA came in and said, let us show you how we do this. We have a little of experience with this. So that was also surprising to me, that the DoD cocked it up so badly, and for a very good reason. But I can wait on that if you want.
No, it was one of those. I was trying. One of the things that I was troubling, I find, it was where the Sycamore came from, the Timber Sycamore.
Oh, well, I did a deep dive on that. Yeah. The CIA has a code name generation program, and this was pure random code generation. Timber Sycamore means absolutely nothing. Simply a randomly generated code name.
Yeah, because I had searched up stuff like what's the national tree of Syria, and I was like, because the timber makes sense, like the falling, like they're trying to the fall of Assad. So I was just, and for anybody that wants to know, the olive tree is the official tree of Syria. For anybody that wanted to do the research. So that's that was one of the threads I was trying to go to. It's like that didn't come from anything. So
no, that's just their random generation.
It's just machine. This. What the main thing that this showed for me was one, just how deep the the roots of these type of programs go throughout the entire federal government. And that's been, I toss a little bit, Doge, for the people that always thought, the tinfoil hats that always thought this Doge audit, actually showed that, the tinfoil hats, really had something, to that, where they're like, these NGOs are not doing what they say they're going to do, they're doing.
Yeah.
And, this program was one of those where it was even worse than like the Iran Contra thing, where this one is like, you could almost in real time see the pieces where they were going. Here's where this is being moved to, how this is being armed, how these people are coming about. And because it never made sense during the conflict why, because it's was Turkey covering? Is that why they suddenly started attacking? Because remember that Turkey started attacking the Kurds, and they started doing this thing. So it was almost, it almost felt like, in a way, that this was, they've always been adversarial, but this gave us an opportunity to make it look like we're trying, that we weren't one of the ones involved in letting this material get into the country. Because we moved stuff straight out of the Gulf War from Iraq. That stuff went straight in. It's looking like a lot of this. The rumors were always there. There was always the accusations that we funded and started ISIS, and it's looking like that is legitimately, a distinct possibility that we were, if we didn't do it directly, we were funding, we were outfitting them in some capacity, because they were at that time fighting the enemy of our enemy.
Right. Well, see, that's what it is. It's two things. Charles, I want to get to your observation in a second, but let's keep going with this. That's exactly right. I've been crazy about this for 30 years. The enemy of my enemy is not a sound foreign policy.
Yeah.
That is the kind of foreign policy you have when the comic, the corporate oligarchy, media, military, industrial intelligence complex. I nailed it for a change. What I call the comic is basically what people used to call the Illuminati. It's this overarching. They don't give a crap. They're selling weapons to both sides, and if things fall into both hands, it's good for business. I think that that's all over this thing, Craig. I really do. Because we know so much about it due to the New York Times and the Washington Post. We know that it was specifically the CIA's Special Activities Division, which is called SAD. And yeah, it is. When you see the outcome. They only train between 5,000 and 10,000 fighters, but you talked about Turkey fighting the Kurds. A major problem is the United States does not understand or pretends to be stupid for the comic how the Middle East works, how these 1,000-year tribalisms and factions and Sunnis and Shias and so far and so forth. They don't understand how it works. So the weird thing is they go, okay, we're going to train 5,000 to 10,000 fighters, but you got to be a moderate. You can't be a jihadist. You got to be moderate. So these guys are going to get paid. They're going to get weapons. They're going to go to fight for what they fight for. So you show up and only a moron would go, oh, yeah, I'm a radical. Give me a gun. They go, no, I'm moderate. I don't like Assad. Give me a weapon. And to me, that's what I saw unfold, because a lot of those guys are now fighting for very extremist organizations.
Oh yeah. I mean, this has been one of I wish I could credit who started this with me, but it was a thought. It was kind of a thought exercise, and it really is. Okay, we know Saddam Hussein was brutal to his people. That's the way he was. Same way with Assad. He was brutal. But in the long scheme, there wasn't as many people dying as there are now in both countries. So that was the thought process. Are they better off now than they were under those things? Because we got involved, we destabilized these two nation states, and it now, as you see, Syria is in utter chaos. There's people dying all the time now, whereas before it was just enemy. It's just political enemies are getting rounded up. I mean, it's just, like I said, there's no good answer. It's not like, oh man, I wish we could have gone back to the good old days, when it just, thousands of people are dying instead of hundreds of thousands.
But this is also ancient. Alexander the Great holds together a massive empire. As soon as he dies, it falls to pieces. Yep. Genghis Khan, massive. The Persians, Xerxes, and so on and so forth. When these guys die, chaos reigns, and that's what happened when we left the Middle East. You train all these guys to become policemen, like say in Afghanistan, and then they go after the dollar. They get bought. These vacuums get filled with a power that America either doesn't understand or plays dumb with to serve the comic. And it may be a little bit of both.
Well, because you said it just just a little bit of the tribalism is the thing. It's like we can't. You can't expect these are generalized things for people listening to say, but you take like the American value system. It's like us. We have a rule of law where it's like if we're told not to do something, we get paid for the work we do. Just all these things go through. So now you're going to take an area where it's tribalism. The tribal leader is the one that dictates everything. You've got the leader, you got the followers, and it's done through brutal tactics. Just like it's always been throughout human history. Well, now what we're doing is we go over to some place like Afghanistan and we try to instill these civilized values like we have in any town that you guys are listening to, just like we normally do. Rule of law. Well, we establish that, like you said, you hire a police officer. Well, he doesn't have the same set of values. He's just basically, oh, okay, I'm a police officer. Okay, what it's like, they don't know what to do, and so as soon as we walk away, it just devolves right back into what the warlords come in and it instantly devolves back to the way it's been for hundreds, thousands of years. And so like I said, it's either we have to become a generalized conqueror and go through and just basically take all the, be like the British Empire again and go over and, either we got to admit that we're trying to be a conqueror, and we're trying to be a nation's, combine all these nation states into the American system, or we've got to realize that these countries are not going to just jump onto the same system that we're on, and you basically have to just sit, kind of what we should have done anyways with Afghanistan. We should have just lobbed the bombs and just turn back around and said, don't do it again, and just never gone in. And it's just, and that's because that's what, unfortunately, as sad as it is, that's what they understand. They understand, they understand, like I said, what we saw with Assad and Saddam Hussein. They understand the brutal, hard-fisted leader that, has this thing, and that society, for all lack of better things, their societies were I'm going to quote here for people listening, air quotes here, a peaceful society, because they knew if they got out of line, there was a hard line, punishment. It's the same with Saudi Arabia. You do something wrong, you're getting executed in the square, by the sword. I mean, it's just, they have these rules, which to us in the Western side is abhorrent. It's like, no, that's not how you do, you can't just go grab somebody off the street, take them in, and shoot them in the head because they said something you didn't like. But that's what they knew over there.
Although our CIA is happy to do that.
Yes.
So, the Central America comes to mind. So folks watch the Operation Condor episode. Craig, I was going to say, a lot of this with the rise of the vice presidents and all, and I don't remember if I mentioned it last week or not. It's the parallel of the rise of Kissinger, who was the geopolitical, not geoglobal, pardon me. He was the geopolitical architect.
Yeah.
And Cheney grew up in that. Bush grew up in that. All these guys grew up in that. So you mentioned that this was highly, highly, highly organized. So what they did was the weapons were serious weapons: AK-47s, anti-tank missiles, RPGs, small arms, mostly routed through third parties, so weapons dealers in Eastern Europe, which tracks back to Biden's connections and all that kind of stuff. But being Eastern Europe, that's all. I'm not saying that Biden was.
No, but there was a reason. Yeah, there's a reason why he was there.
But of Soviet era weapons, because that's what these guys were familiar with.
Yep.
So America isn't selling them their own brand new shiny hardware the way we are with Ukraine. They're routing through and getting these arms that have been stockpiled and collected or whatnot, possibly going back. If it's Soviet era, they're going back to Russia and Afghanistan, which was the rise of Taliban and Osama bin Laden.
Yeah.
I mean, this is huge. You're absolutely right. This isn't a 5-year program that wasted a couple billions of dollars and never got Assad out.
Yeah, this is alleged. There's no, it's just a lot of these things. There's no way to, verify this. But one of the things I got during the research for this, I found is there's a really good chance that from when Yugoslavia broke up, that a lot of those weapons that you're talking about came from that. That those are stockpiles that were in that area. That those were the ones that were moved because they were, most of those weapons after through Clinton and through the Bush thing, when I can't even think of the leader that was tried. Chat can help me out there. The leader of during the when Serbia and when they were fighting.
Oh gosh.
I want to say it starts with an M.
Yeah, goodness.
Yeah,
Serbia. Yeah.
So during that battle with that, there was some of those stockpiles that was basically those are some of the pieces that were moved from here, and that was part of the thing that ambassador was talking with the Turkish, counterparts on how to move this material from here to Syria, getting this thing through, because you need, with Turkey is one of the major borders of the Black Sea, so it's like a lot of the shipping, Turkey has to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
So, yep, that's it. I thought it was an M. Yep,
Yep, you were
Milosevic.
right.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
that's it.
and that's it's like I said, but it can't be verified because it's one of those that's like I said, there's so many layers on this thing. How do you identify a Soviet era military stockpile of AK-47s and tie it back to a certain area? Obviously, the old Soviets aren't keeping a records like, oh crap, yeah, that was item number 1, 2, yeah, you don't have anything like that, but it's just that's what it was. From what I was seeing, the unverified things is that they thought that a lot of those area weapons, the older ones, were coming from that part of southern Eastern Bloc.
Yeah, that specificity tracks with the generality of my research, Eastern Europe.
Yeah.
So that absolutely tracks. I do want to say, Craig, at this point that one of the groups who was an affiliate in Syria of Al-Qaeda was al-Nusra, who also had ties to ISIS. And now al-Nusra is known as Tahrir al-Sham, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, and they control the capital in Syria and the largest portion. And their guy is the president. And their intentions, so on and so forth, are not rah America straightforward at all. So it's
the other one
power
which
vacuums. Yeah,
that current. No, I'm saying this springs just what you're saying. This is another one unverified thing too. But that one of the other threads to this was what we're dealing with the Houthis in Yemen.
Yeah,
is that
Yemen,
this may actually be some of the same material that was done during Timber Sycamore was actually proliferated into these hands as yet another chess move to get these things in place. Because once again, like we've talked through several of these shows, it's not so much everybody gets so caught up on what's happening now. You got to remember, like some of the stuff that we're facing now was because of what happened from the first term of Trump to the first term, to Biden's term. That's what we're seeing now. It's like everybody's focused on, well, he didn't do that. It doesn't happen immediately. It's like something that Biden would have done in year 1 or 2 would be something that we would just now be, we would be really feeling the effects of. And that's one of the things. Everybody that gets in politics, they're so quick, the short memory span that they're like, see, I told you this guy sucked. This guy was terrible. I'm like, no, you got to remember, just because you walk into the door doesn't mean suddenly everything stops. It's like this. It's like the snowball. And so what we're seeing possibly with the Houthis is that it may have been as far staged back as Obama and during this Arab Spring, that we're just now starting to see the effects of this destabilization thing, which is now manifesting in these Houthi rebels attacking the shipping lanes. And so they set up this chess piece now to where, okay, if this thing fails, this doesn't work, like now we can bring this other piece online, and now this other pawn starts working, and it starts causing more, it's all about spot fires. If you keep everything divided and conquered, like I said, that's how you break it up. But if you can keep everybody focused on one point, it's hard. But if they're all divided, then you can easily take them out. And I think that's what we're seeing right now with the Houthis.
Absolutely. There's no question. And again, that's also the proxy. It's this whole proxy war thing, which is really good for business. So I was fascinated too about how this whole thing fell apart. So you have all these partners. You have Qatar, you have Jordan, you have UAE, you have Saudi Arabia, you have Turkey, you have the United States in the mix. You have the overarching of a very powerful triumvirate of Russia, China, and Iran, who are also stirring the pot and trying to undo and also capitalize. And then what happens is in 2015, after spending $3 to $5 billion and Assad is not going anywhere, a Jordanian intelligence officer kills 2 young contractors and a South African trainer at a CIA training facility. Tempers flare, 3 people are murdered, and this is what lights things up. Which ultimately, when the New York Times and the next year, when the New York Times and the Washington Post, because it's really hard to hide that, Craig. And I don't know if you remember, but there were examples in Operation Condor where crap got out of hand and people were killed in public, or they chased the one guy, I forget from what country, to Washington, D.C. They were trying to gun down this dude from Central America in Washington, D.C., and that's when that broke, because this
Yeah.
is not controllable. This is
Yeah,
not controllable.
And Charles, you said that's pretty much the thing. The enemy of my enemy is it goes back to Afghanistan with the CIA training. Oh, bin Laden. His mission was to attack the Soviets, cause chaos with the Soviets in Afghanistan, and we ended up betraying them, just as we always do. And it's just the same thing. It's like these Houthis were probably brought, to do this thing, and then we, in some way, either hung them out to dry, or we got, as sometimes happens, you get double crossed, and now we've armed these people that are attacking both sides, and you can't control them. Because Joey, you mentioned it earlier, where kind of what I brought up too is this is one of the things I think part of the reason why they lost control of this was the election of Trump in 2016. This ended in 2017. So I think if Hillary Clinton had been in place, this would have still gone, would still have happened, and I think Assad would have fallen.
The only reason that I don't think that that's all the way there is because we have to allow for that Jordanian intelligence officer killing those people, and the New York Times and the Washington Post breaking the story in 2016. Now, I suppose the story could have been buried. It wasn't that big. I mean, how many people heard that story? How many people remember that story? I think you're right. And that's why this is just, I'm looking at the list of comparables, and we talked about all of them, just about. I'm looking at you talked about the Arab Spring, the rise of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. They're like, oh, wait a minute, these guys are extremists, and now they run the country. Like, then now America has to go meet with them in such a way that, okay, they run the country now, so we got to make nice with them. We've seen that too. Why does America have this history of often playing nice with dictators?
I mean, and the crazy, like I said, like the Muslim Brotherhood, that directly affects us because the right there going through Egypt, through the Red Sea, you've got a major point of shipping coming through there, and so you're going to give an extremist group control that's going to be able to dictate how shipping goes through, which is a major point of shipping for the world. And so it was one of those things where it's kind of like anything. It's like when somebody tells you who they are, believe them. And like I said, they're just, this goes back to the Obama thing. It's like you look at it and you start realizing there was something where it wasn't. I don't even know if I want to say like America, because I don't like the term America first, because it's so divisive for a lot of people. But it's just, you can see that Obama was more on the global side, like, one world, bring it, like he said, because everybody in the ministry was open border, open things, it's just, so this, you could see that was probably why certain little aspects like that were, I don't want to say afterthoughts, because you'd think that would be a major point that they would have to consider in this conflict, is what that would have, especially like an oil cost, because that's where a lot of the tankers come through. But I don't know. I mean, it doesn't make sense why you would want to foment that.
That's the big thing. Very little that America does makes any sense because it's not pure. The mathematics never work, because what we're seeing is a house of mirrors. I'll go so far, Craig, and I've said it before, so I don't mind saying it again. What globalism means to me is the fire sailing of America, which creates an intense pushback that then Trump then rides into. Let's make America great again. Let's bring back all the things that were outsourced. Folks, watch Ross Perot in the debate with Bill Clinton. He said, listen, folks, the NAFTA is a bad idea. The World Trade Organization, this is going to go very, very badly for America. So, Craig, we're going back now, 30 years on that?
It's funny you said that, because that just popped up on my Reels thing, and I watched that debate when he was talking about
He
the
nailed
manufacturing. Yeah, manufacturing going to Mexico. He was talking about, you're going to take these jobs here, you're going to put them here where they don't care about the environment, they don't care about safety, they don't care about all this stuff, and it's going to go there, and then those things aren't coming back. And he nailed it. I mean, he literally said where we're at right now, that all this manufacturing is going to go overseas, and he said then you're going to be in a spot where you no longer have the security because you're dependent on everybody else for things. That's what it is right now. It's like what's going on with China is, unfortunately, China has so much of the manufacturing that even though we could start to do it, it's going to be years before we can start making everything from cogs to parts and stuff, because we don't have the machines, the machining to make all these things right now, because we've been so used to getting slave labor, cheap prices, because like I said, everybody's like, well, why don't you buy American? Well, right now, I mean, I want, with everything is right. Who wants to go out and buy $100 toaster right now for bread?
Right.
And that's because that's what it's going to be with, between union, labor costs, all, to buy a toaster, it's going to be $100. Yes, it's going to be that. Or you could buy the one that's on sale right now at Walmart for $15.99. That's going to do 2 pieces of toast. It's like, which one are you going to buy because of the money you have? And that's what Ross Perot was talking about. It's like, if we don't stop this now, it's going to be near impossible to reverse it without there being something major occurring.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so thorny now, it's not going to get solved. So I saw something really salient the other day, because we were about finished up with this, but it's all of a piece. So the Nike shoe factory in Vietnam, right?
Yeah.
They can make a t-shirt for $2. So in West Virginia, according to this thing, and I think it's probably an exaggeration, it said it takes $20 to make the same t-shirt. So if you raise the tariffs on Vietnam, it's going to take $3 for the t-shirt. But there's not enough incentive there to use these tariffs to really change the game, and that's going to take a while. It's a little sideways, but I thought it was very interesting, and it's kind of in line about what you're talking about.
Yeah, because it's like, even that, it was like, for tariff, for it to still even be equal, I mean, you'd have to have like 400 or 500% tariff on the t-shirts and shoes from that place.
Yeah.
And Nike is not going to suddenly just build a factory in some Midwest state and start making shoes, because nobody's going to buy an $800 pair of Jordans.
Yeah.
And that's
yeah.
No, go ahead.
Please finish your thought. No, I was going to say, and this does relate directly. It's about natural resources. Now it's about minerals. So a couple of days ago, China said, okay, you want to throw these giant tariffs at us? We're not going to send you, and I don't remember the names of them, and it's immaterial. We're not going to send you these 3 minerals that you need to do military tech, to do other tech, to make things run. So Craig, even if we had the factories and the infrastructure, there are elements, and that's where, and we haven't mentioned his name yet tonight, but that's where Musk comes in, dealing with, lithium in South American countries. And who are the largest, miners of lithium in South America? China. So the whole idea of having enemies doesn't, in a corporate global world, you can't have enemies. Because in order to make the EVs run and make other things run, you got to get the lithium, and China controls all the lithium in South America. So how the hell can they be an enemy in the sense of you and I understood it, or Charles or Joe, us older folk, us Gen Xers and, older? It was not always this way. It's sort of become this way, probably starting in the 1950s, post-World War II, after the Marshall Plan. I think that's where all this architecture really started. Do you think so?
Yeah, I agree, because that's one of the things, too. It's like, where we kind of teased it in the beginning, too, about Greenland. That's kind of where the part of this came from, is because this was kind of known that this was in the works. Boomers.
Or the silent generation is your parents? Who are the silent generation, who are way too loud for my taste?
And so, Greenland has got, it's got a nice stockpile of rare earth minerals and stuff on it. So that's kind of where this was kind of the thing. It's like, hey, if we can get access to this, boom. And that's where the whole pressure, it's like, well, why don't you just become part of the U.S. because then it makes it easier. Then you're not having to get,
Right.
you're not having to go
Right.
this other aspect. But yeah, that's kind of where that, it was kind of like chess pieces trying to be moved. But yeah, I'm gonna have to pause here for a second.
Yeah. So who's the silent generation?
That would be,
as they're called. Is that an alternative for the silent generation, also known as traditionalists, consists of individuals born between 1928 and 1945. So my dad, who's 80 or 81, he was born in 44. So he's whatever, 81. Yeah.
He'd be a 44. Yeah, that'd be close. It's like right at the
just gets into this silent generation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
because we're the feral generation. We're the ones that we were just thrown outside, and they had to do the PSAs to make sure our parents remembered we were out there.
Yeah. But but you're the same as me though. We're getting pinched down now. So
I was born in 75. So
I just want to tell the audience what I sent to you and Joe Redmile. So I'm getting a low bandwidth signal. Probably my bandwidth is not low. We've probably talked about enough stuff now that the algorithms are going nuts. I talked to the AI. I don't know. Anybody let us know if we're starting to get sketchy. But
that's why it's so important to share the show to people.
Yeah. and Facebook is taking them down after 30
bring a friend.
Anyway, so. Yeah, and I have audio of any show. So if any show goes away, you can't find it. Knock on wood, we're fine on YouTube, except for that one show that somebody got offended by. That I'm not going to mention which one it was, but and it was about a certain it was about I shouldn't say that because minds are going to go, oh, what show was it? It was the second part of a show about a communication base on Long Island that maybe had very nefarious roots. And we did a 2-part episode on it, and only part 2 got taken down, which makes no sense. Yeah. Which makes absolutely no sense. So Joe, if your dad was born in 1915, yeah, they were the greatest generation, they called them, which is nice. And then the boomers, I guess. And then, yeah, the silent generation, which that's my dad. So 80 and younger, who I think talk way too much. The traditionalists. Where did that get us? But anyway, I just want to say
something at the beginning.
I want to say one thing because it was a long time ago. Iran-Contra. What is Iran-Contra? We had an embargo against Iran where we could not sell them weapons. And this is Iran now, who, Craig, we've talked about tonight as being a major enemy of ours.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in college. So this is like 86, 87, Iran-Contra, because, yeah, it was the summer of...
because it would have been
summer of 87.
Yeah, because it would have been right around the second term of Reagan is when this was starting to come about.
So the DOD and CIA and so forth go, well, screw it. They'll pay premium dollar for weapons. We want to fund the Contras to knock off the leadership in Nicaragua. So that's where the Contra comes. So we sell weapons to our sworn public enemy, take that money and feed it to rebels in Nicaragua to knock off their leader. This country is absurd, man.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's one of those. We got these goals, and we got to about this. You got to hide it, and then That's for anybody that says, "Well, this isn't true." It's like, guys, all you have to do is look at history. We keep doing the same things over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah,
it's like this isn't
the Americas, right? Training.
Yeah. And it's so you when you see these things, and like I said, but yeah, you teased something though in the beginning. You said that you had a point that you wanted to talk about at the end of the show, or it was that bit about the Iran-Contra.
I think I may have covered it now. Yeah, one thing that I want to say is here's one thing. Yeah, lawyers, drugs, and money. No kidding. The fit has hit the shan.
Yes.
David Mamet. The fit has hit the shan. There, and I think they have serial numbers and stuff. Weapons that we have sold to Ukraine for their desperate fight against Russia have wound up on the black market. So
Oh,
this
yeah.
is super current. This is super current.
And I don't
And
think
kind of frightening.
yeah,
Yeah.
if I had to throw and put my foil hat, I need to get one just so I can put it on. Just so I could yeah, just to have it there. I don't think it was accidental in any way.
I don't
I think
either.
this was a modern version of what was going on with Timber Sycamore around Contra. I think once again Ukraine is and still is a useful turning just point where they're basically, we're going to put it here and it immediately gets shipped to the other locations, because I mean it's just it we talk about all the time. It's like if you put like the red threads, if everything goes in here, it doesn't take anybody with great brilliance to figure out, if all the threads keep pointing in one location, that there's something going on. Why was Biden there doing the stuff for the Obama administration in Ukraine? Why was Biden's son in Ukraine? Why is all this stuff going to this place? Obviously, Ukraine is a focal point for, we're going to find out. Like I said, down the road, it's going to come back like, oh yeah, remember when we were talking about that? I think, like I said, the black market. Well, we're going to find out where this material is going. Well, it's not going to take too long, and we're going to probably find there's going to be some other group that's going to start using the military stuff that was supposed to go to Ukraine. Because, I mean, come on, 50 some billion, dollars worth of stuff. You're like, I don't know where it's at. I mean, come on.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's like
That's not an accounting error.
No, that's like the dissolution of the Soviet Union with the dirty bombs, the suitcase bombs, a couple of missiles, right? Which came back last Christmas, with the whole drone thing that magically went away. The weird drone swarms in New Jersey. Remember, Craig, that was one of the theories that was being floated. They were looking for a dirty bomb that may have gone back to, but I saw an expert who said, believe me, basically all of those things have been accounted for now. It took us a while, but we had people on it and all that stuff has been tracked down. So I don't know. This was a good show. This was a good hour. A lot for everybody to think about.
Yeah.
So Craig, I think you said it, but let's end on this. Let me get the outro ready. But I, at least on a certain level, this was probably intentional.
Oh, yes. I have no doubts that this was done, on purpose, that there was no like, oh crap, we didn't think this was going to go sideways. I think they knew. They just didn't know when it was going to break down. They just knew at some point. This is like the arsonist that goes out and lights a tree on fire out in the woods. They knew it was going to cause a forest fire. They just didn't know how bad the forest fire was going to get, but they knew it was going to cause, chaos.
And for the comic, for the defense contractors, for the multi-global, the Palantirs and the Andurils and all these guys, that's okay, because the stuff, somebody's gonna buy the stuff. And hey, I'm an arms dealer. I just sell the arms. I'm not responsible for who you, right? It's that complicated morality agreement. Hey, I just sold the dude the stuff, right? Drug dealers use that same argument, right? I sold him the stuff. He put it up his nose, Jack. I didn't put it up his nose for him. And that's what makes this stuff so frightening. And it's a huge, if you were to look at our tapestry, this very subject is a huge part of our sinister mystery tapestry. Because it's current. It's like you said, that was the best comment right there. That this is not isolated. This is a pattern, and it goes back thousands of years. So, yeah,
it's one of those. So this is one of those things too. It's like, like we say, like shows. You guys have any other ones like this that you've heard about that maybe we haven't come across? You got to let us know.
Yeah, any piece that you go, ooh, this makes a nice connection between this or that, or you talked about Kissinger, but you never talked about this aspect of, because we're scheduled for the next couple weeks. We got the Amityville show, which is we'll tell you what the mythology is, and then we will unpack the mythology, which I think is exciting, Craig. We don't really do shows in that format. That's going to be fun. Like, here's the story as it's been told in movies, books, and all of that kind of stuff. Here are the major players. Here's probably what actually went on, which is going to be interesting, especially because I don't get to do this kind of stuff as a paranormal investigator that much anymore since Tanya has retired, although I think we're going to get back into it a little, which will be nice.
Oh, nice.
Field investigations and stuff. Yeah, I think
breaking news
into next year. Yeah, she had to work late tonight. So, but then we're going to do the butterfly revolution, and folks, this is end game stuff. This is end game stuff that links with a lot of Craig. This is sort of the end game of, what do you call it? Our Gatekeeper series.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So many of those gatekeepers, Teal, Andreas, and these guys. It's a pretty sinister vision for the future. It's a pretty sinister vision.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, I think people are gonna enjoy that one. So bring a friend.
Hopefully, we'll frighten the hell out of them. But anyway, so I'm gonna let the old guy take us out, but I hope you feel better, brother.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Get a good.
All right, don't be sinister. Stay mysterious.
There you go. Night, folks. Ooh.
Do you have a sinister mystery in mind? Let us know by sending us a DM or comment in the chat. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Till next time, stay mysterious.